do the prayers. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger, that holds some close and others distant. I pay homage to the Sublime Mother of the victorious ones of the three times, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceasing, and of the nature of space, and which is the object of realization of the self-knowing primordial wisdom. Okay. So today we're starting the second part of this module. It's part of the second term. We've covered half of the text, half of the handout at least. I would also like to ask you, I mean, those of you who are present, it's different because you've already probably done so, but we're asking for a donation for this class. It's for the IBD basically. So the IBD, I had the great fortune to study at this institute. They very generously gave us one of their classrooms that they can't use while we're here. And it's just a short donation, a suggested donation. If you can't afford it, it doesn't matter. For here, we ask for $500. For anyone abroad, $10 because it's just a round figure. It's easier. But just to know that this is to support the monks, mainly the students. They're mainly monks here, but also some nuns, of course, who receive their education for free. So they don't have to pay anything for whatever they get so much. We got so much and we never had to pay for anything. And so if you can afford it, it's a nice donation to support the study of the monks and nuns and lay people as well. There are quite a few lay people studying here as well. So just to remind you. And then, well, yeah, we've done half of the text. We've gone through half of the text. And we covered almost one of the main outlines. I mean, we covered the summary. I went through great compassion again. Then also about the Bodhisattva path, at least the first two paths. We learned a little bit about those. And then the outline we're going through right now is headed how to practice the path according to the system in general. So how to practice. Lama Tsongkhapa, despite his emphasis on academic understanding as a foundation, as a tool to a better understanding when we then internalize the teachings, reminds us very much of doing exactly that, not only to accumulate more knowledge for the sake of debate and so forth, but rather to take whatever we learn and bring it into our daily life. So from the beginning he says, he also says that this text we're studying is based, of course, on Arya Nagarjuna's system. And for us it's important to find deep conviction in the teachings of Arya Nagarjuna, really understand what it's all about, not superficially, but also seeing how everything is connected, how it actually makes sense. And in that way, of course, finding a way to bring it into our own life. if we never find ascertainment, he says, with respect to our own personal practice, we're clearly not studying in the right way. So these are really strong words, that whatever we learn, we should find a way to make it relevant, to bring it into our own practice in whichever way. So understanding, the better our understanding, the more we're able to do so, of course. So it's like this skillful balance between, of course, studying, learning about the Dharma, but in a way in which it's relevant to our daily life. So, because if we don't do that, even if we strive hard in the universal, in the Mahayana, or the great vehicle, as Geshe Thupten Jinpa calls it, we fail to extract the value. Okay, so there's that reminder. And then he continues by saying, well, that is actually Acharya Chandrakirti. Of course, the emphasis is a lot on emptiness. There'll be a lot of explanation on emptiness, but just emptiness itself is too dry. We need the method aspect as well. He starts with the method aspect, basically saying, look, these are the texts by Arya Nagarjuna that teach the method so effectively. Precious Garland, of course, that tells us a lot about the 6 perfections, which of course Acharya Chandrakirti does as well. Beautiful explanation on generosity, on ethical conduct, and so forth in each chapter. Each chapter deals with one of the perfections, and they're explained in the beginning usually. Well, in the beginning means the whole chapter is about them, actually. So in each chapter one of those are explained, and Precious Garland explains them so beautifully as well, and it's based on that. Then, of course, Acharya Chandrakirti also bases his explanations of the path on what Nagarjuna says in his praise to the ultimate expanse, where it talks about emptiness, it talks about the emptiness of our own mind, our own Buddha nature, reminds us of the fact we've got everything to become a Buddha. It's just a matter of recognizing that and then utilizing that incredible potential we have. Just quickly going through it, just a sec. And of course, what Nagarjuna also teaches, Arya Nagarjuna also teaches in the praise to the Dhammadhatu, is that the door to the Dharma, the door to the path or the vehicle of the Dharma is taking refuge. We discussed that in great detail, what that actually means, which then in turn, taking refuge is the basis for the entryway. So the entryway into the Dharma is taking refuge. The entryway into the universal vehicle is bodhicitta, which is why taking refuge is the basis of bodhicitta. And that's beautifully reflected in the first prayer we do. In 2 lines we take refuge, and the next 2 lines. So that is basically, so this statement, generating the awakened mind on the basis of going for refuge, is reflected in every Dharma practice that starts with taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. And of course, then with the practice of a bodhisattva, we enhance our Buddha nature, we enhance the mind, the mental consciousness in a profound way, and are then therefore able to go through the 10 grounds. That's what praise to the Dhammadhatu teaches us in summary, and what of course Acharya Chandrakirti does too. And that explanation was followed by the Compendium of Sutra, the explanation of the Compendium of Sutra, which was even more extensive. Was more extensively given here in terms of understanding. It's so difficult to find the 8 leisures and the 10 opportunities, which are what describe or what exemplify a precious human life. Now, I think we all got that, the very first condition we all have. Secondly, faith, of course, but faith meaning something very specific, not in the way we usually think of faith. In some religions, there's no emphasis on faith based on reasoning, but rather just, I don't know, when I don't use the word blind faith, but it seems to be that, just, you know, because it says somewhere, it says so just follow that. But in this particular tradition, it's not. I mean, it's better than nothing. It's not seen as like faulty, but if you can if you compare discerning faith, faith based on reasoning, and blind faith, of course, discerning faith is much more reliable, much more stable. And therefore, recognizing that we have this kind of faith on a daily basis. In fact, well, something that actually becomes quite obvious nowadays, that in the West we very much criticize blind faith, rightly so. It is, I mean, depending on what your blind faith is directed anyway, it can be quite dangerous to believe in just anything. But even, like I just said, even if it's directed at something worthwhile, it's not very reliable. And what is really funny is that when we criticize that kind of blind faith, we don't realize we have blind faith in science, for instance. I mean, some of the ideas we have about science, scientists don't even share them. I mean, like this idea that science has figured everything out, and if scientists don't talk about it, it can't be true. While talking to a scientist, they would say, no, we know maybe 1% of what's happening in the brain, right? This whole idea, we don't know much about the brain, we don't know much about the ocean, we don't know much about what's going on around space. I mean, there's so much more to be discovered. Therefore, when there's some who refute the idea, or would never accept the idea of reincarnation and the idea of life in other realms that we cannot perceive based on the scientific understanding. Well, there's no proof. It's difficult to present a proof of reincarnation from our side, of course. There is evidence for reincarnation. Like in the Pramana, there's reasoning for the existence of past and future lives, in particular of past lives, but also future lives. However, the problem is you need to have a basis for that reasoning to be effective. For instance, the reasoning that there's smoke because there's fire. I can correctly infer that there's fire in my neighbor's house because there's a particular type of smoke billowing out of their window, right? But if I have no idea what the relationship between smoke and fire is, if I don't understand that, then then no matter how much smoke I see, I have no idea that there's fire. So you need a certain basic understanding, therefore, to make the reasonings presented, or in this case of fire and smoke, effective, or in the other case of reincarnation. Now, in terms of like how the mind, a previous moment of mind, one moment of mind must be preceded by a moment of mind, which we all accept, actually. We can all understand that if I go to sleep grumpy, I wake up grumpy. Or I understand if someone says something to me that makes me upset. If I didn't hear what they were saying, it doesn't matter. But if I heard what they said to me and I stopped thinking about it and it upsets me, then for the next few minutes, hours, whatever, I'll be upset. So one moment of mind getting upset leading to... So it's not about the brain in that moment. We understand that it's the mind. Or in the case of studying for an exam, we don't take injections. That's the math injection, that's the history injection. No, we memorize, we use the mind to memorize or understand the information learned, and then we're able to take the exams. However, when it comes to the first moment of mind, things are different. Throughout our life, we can see the continuation of consciousness from moment to moment, one moment giving rise to another, and every moment having to be preceded by a former moment. But somehow at birth, it's kind of conception, things are different. We like to believe it's the brain. Why? Because scientists don't talk about anything else, and we believe they've figured everything out and they've proven the non-existence of reincarnation. But actually, they haven't proven the non-existence. They have not proven either the existence nor the non-existence. So there's a difference there for not proving the existence of something versus proving the non-existence of something. So science hasn't proven the non-existence of something. But for Buddhists, it's difficult. I mean, there is this reasoning, as I said, but first you need the basis, a good understanding of the mind, generated through mindfulness, introspection, and alertness of our own mind, get to know our mind better. And then when someone says, well, every moment is preceded by a former moment, you go, yeah, of course. From my own experience, I know. Anyway, so going back to faith, took it off, went in a different direction for a moment, but no, going back, returning to faith, we have a lot of blind faith in modern science. Our faith is not always discerning faith, and here what we are taught in this text, in other texts, faith is good, but it should be discerning faith, and faith should be provisional. Only as long as we haven't realized something, faith is okay if it makes sense, but of course the goal is to gain a first-hand understanding, a first-hand experience. So that's important. Then, of course, that's difficult. Faith is really difficult in the Dharma. Otherwise, if we had that idea of faith, we wouldn't waste any time. We'd only be practicing. Then what's also difficult is bodhicitta and great compassion. Those are difficult. However, talking about accumulating those, well, that's one part. So accumulating certain qualities, it's difficult, but also overcoming certain obscurations. Lama Tsongkhapa is really big on that. He says it's very important to study the Dharma. That's important. Understand the Dharma. I mean, there are limits to what you need to learn. I mean, some things, I think, well, we learn them, but they're not that absolutely necessary. I don't think, you won't be able to practice without them. But they just give you a good understanding of how it all fits together, or how it all links. So anyway, study is important. Then accumulating merit. This positive potential is extremely important because it gives us a lot of freedom. It helps us to, if you want something, you need merit. If you want to buy something, you need money. If you want to accumulate, if you want to accomplish something spiritually, you need merit. They're kind of similar in that way. Therefore, accumulating merit is important, but also to purify negativities. The emphasis is very much on purifying practices are very powerful. Therefore, watch out. First of all, well, as Lama Tsongkhapa reminds us, engage in the practice of purification. Learning, of course, studying, and then accumulating merit. But on top of that, watch out when it comes to certain actions. Be careful when it comes to certain actions. So don't harm a bodhisattva, of course. Watch out preventing someone from practicing the acts of Mara in general, but here in particular, don't prevent someone from practicing. Then abandoning the Dharma, also really important. Be careful about the criticism of maybe other traditions, of distinguishing between the teachings of the Buddha and so forth. All right. And that is then followed by kind of like a reading list. Kind of like a reading list. At the end of this particular section, Lama Tsongkhapa says, Acharya Chandakirti's text, of course, is important. Arya Nagarjuna's text anyway. But then there are a few others that we should study. Of course, we should study the sutras too. That is implied. But those are difficult. And then there are certain texts that can help us to get a better understanding. Shantideva, he recommends for us to read Shantideva's text, which, of course, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way. I mean, what an amazing text in terms of practicing bodhicitta in particular. That text should be, definitely on our reading list. If we can read verses every day as part of our practice. I mean, we can read a little bit of many of these texts that are so important. We don't need to read the whole thing, but read a few verses and maybe reflect on them as part of our practice. Take the Bodhisattva Way of Life, 1 or 2 verses, and that's the focus for your day. Or take the Great Lamrim, for instance. But you could take any other text, Precious Garland as well. I mean, honestly, they're not that many. How long does it take you to read all of them? And if you do if you read a few verses every day, after a few years, you've gone through all of them and you've reflected on all of them. That's definitely an effective way of studying, or at least internalizing a little bit every day. But yeah, so Lama Tsongkhapa tells us Arya Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutra, which is more explicit than the Precious Garland and the Praise to the Ultimate Expanse. If you want to understand that, don't just read the Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, but also read Compendium of Training, which is very helpful. Because Lama Tsongkhapa, the great Bodhisattva Shantideva tells us, based on Arya Nagarjuna's text, that we should reflect on our precious human rebirth, but not just that, also make it meaningful and understand its great value, and understand that this is a rare opportunity to not waste it, to generate faith in the Dharma in general, which means believing faith, to generate slowly believing faith, very much based on reasoning, of course, but also to focus on the universal vehicle in particular, and to generate not just believing faith, but also aspiration of faith, which is that aspiration, I want to do this. I want to do this myself, not just, oh, this is great, this is wonderful, I rejoice in whoever can do it. No, I personally want to do it. I can do it. I have all the ingredients to do exactly that. Other people have done so. If they can do it, I can do it myself. Really need to understand. It's so funny, like, what you really learn when you learn Buddhism. I remember growing up as a teenager, there were the great people, and then it was me, not so great, wanted to be great, but I was like, oh, they can all do it, but I can't. And maybe that's true when it comes to singing and dancing. When it comes to, I don't know, certain things, like, no way I could stand on the stage and sing with people staying in the room. So therefore, that's something I can't do. But when it comes to the Dharma, you learn the difference between us doesn't really, there isn't much of a difference. There's a difference between having an interest or not. There's a difference between having such a strong interest that you put in the time to practice. But that's it. That's the difference. And so accordingly, some have very much advanced. You have these great lamas, these great practitioners who are definitely more advanced. But it's just a matter of time. Maybe not this lifetime, but this lifetime is really short in comparison to what lies ahead and what I've already gone through. So big deal. So it really gives you that sense, I can do it. There's not that much difference between us. Whether they can sing or not, that's not important. The point is we can all do the same thing. And that gives you that sense of confidence, but even more so, it makes you bolder. Let go of that timidness. Just do it. Yeah. Anyway, having said that, therefore generating this aspiration to the aspiration of faith in the universal vehicle, which means I want to do this, I want to accomplish that, I want to achieve that, no matter what. So this is where we got to last time, I believe. Yes. And so once you have that kind of faith, so I forgot to mention, so once we've got that kind of faith, that is similar to contrived bodhicitta. Now, of course, based on great compassion, and the faith at that and that aspiration towards gaining those same qualities, of course, you generate the wish to become fully enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, which becomes second nature. First, it takes some time; it doesn't come natural, but one day it'll just pop up on its own, right? You just can't. It's like self-centeredness is not in the center of your life. It's everyone else's well-being. And that's when things have really turned around. That's when they say you have awakened the, what do you call it? The Mahayana lineage, the lineage of the universal vehicle. You've this lineage is a funny word, but it kind of means the type, the lineage, the family. You've awakened that lineage or this family of the universal vehicle within yourself. Because for the first time, now it's others before self. Self is still there, but you've actually grown accustomed to putting others' welfare before yourself. So that's the first step. Based on that, you then generate, of course, the aspiration to become fully enlightened and bodhicitta. So you've entered the path. First, it's aspirational bodhicitta, as we learned last time. It's called aspirational bodhicitta. However, when then you take the bodhisattva vow, it gives it an extra strength, I guess you could say, which means that commitment to now engaging in the actions of a bodhisattva, that is the difference between wishing to go, as Shantideva says, and actually going. So the wish to move towards enlightenment versus actually moving in that direction. Okay. Which is followed by, and this is in Lama Tsongkhapa's text, he says, next one gives away, protects, purifies, and enhances one's body, material resources, and the roots of virtue. It's like, what? Gives away, gives it away, protects it, purifies it, and enhances. All right, so this needs to be explained, which, so if you look at page 65, it says, we should give away our body, resources, and virtues, serving others through our physical actions, offering our possessions, and dedicating our merit for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, so in many of the prayers, you find passages when he says, I give away my body, my resources, and my virtues. So give away your body. I mean, are you literally giving away your body? No. You give away your resources, and I put a number in there because people may panic. Ooh, give away my things. Oh, my iPod, my iPad, whatever. No, but I think it's important to understand, like, of course, reducing our possessions is not a bad idea, but it has to be something you want to do. Very important, when we talk about renunciation, the word renunciation in English, we borrow that term renunciation. And I think when I first heard the word renunciation, I found that scary. I thought, oh my God, I have to give everything away that I like, but that's not what it means. Renunciation is, first of all, not giving up your possessions. You give up your attachment towards your possessions. But that's not, you can't force that. It's something that has to grow naturally. Therefore, if you start Buddhist practice, don't take a big box, put all the stuff in, because, I mean, I've done that many times, and I remember some of my teachers talked about it, like put it all in a box, put it outside, and then the next day, oops, actually I need this, and actually I need that. So it has to come natural. It's not like you can easily give things away. But it's rather about distinguishing between what we really need, what is helpful, that saves time, for instance, to do our practice effectively, and what is merely in the way. So this is part of this footnote I put in here. In this context, offering our possessions does not mean give away everything we own. Definitely not. Unless we genuinely have no need for something, while it may benefit someone else. Okay, if it's really not needed, I mean, how many pairs of gloves do you need? I mean, maybe 2, one for washing, one for wearing or whatever, but like 7, 8, or like people having these crazy amount of shoes. It's like, huh? I don't even look at people's shoes. I don't even notice what shoes they're wearing. Actually, people paying attention to what shoes other people wear. It's kind of down there. I look into their faces. Anyway, never mind about shoes, whatever. That's not like the main problem. They're just kind of small. But the point is, like, if you have no need for something and if someone else can benefit from it, that would definitely be a reason to give it away. Or unless keeping it would hinder our spiritual practice. For instance, if caring for it consumes much of our time and attention, right? I don't know, if you've got like a huge house and you spend every day cleaning from top to bottom, no time to meditate because I haven't really cleaned the, attic yet or whatever, then maybe better to either be okay that it's not that clean or give it away. So therefore, giving away certain things that we don't need. But giving away everything, that's not what we mean. Rather, it means cultivating the attitude that whatever we possess is maintained for the purpose of directly or indirectly benefiting other sentient beings. Now, if you've realized, oh my God, I've got so much attachment towards my shoes or whatever. I mean, I have attachment towards things, you know, the shiny pot or the shining pan or whatever, right? I could give it away and then exchange it for... But then, again, you can't force it. Don't force it. Don't ever force it. It's all about a volunteer kind of, you know, like just giving a sense, okay, I want to give it. I just don't need it. It's an obstacle to me. And when you can do that, then that's a good way to go about it. So it has to always come naturally. It has to always come... It always has to feel like I have more freedom if I don't have that. And that's a good time to do it. So if you still have attachment, it's not cheating, but you can counteract that attachment. You can utilize the attachment in a positive way by generating the motivation. I'm keeping this for the benefit of all sentient beings. It's not cheating. You know you have attachment. You know you have attachment, and you can't just wish it away. It's not going to go away. So the skillful way would be to say, okay, I've got this attachment. Hopefully I can reduce it, and possibly you try to. There are certain techniques to do it. But most importantly, I'm using it for the benefit of all sentient beings. Then you turn that into virtue. Right? Whatever you keep, I'll keep it for the benefit of all sentient beings, so be able to practice effectively. So therefore, rather, it means cultivating the attitude that whatever we possess is maintained for the purpose of directly or indirectly benefiting other sentient beings. For example, we may keep our clothing, bedding, or other basic necessities so that we can maintain our health and strength to study and teach the Dharma effectively. Study, teach, and practice, I should say. Study and practice is more important. Okay, study and practice the Dharma effectively. Likewise, we may keep a computer or phone because they enable us to communicate, share teachings, and support others more efficiently. So again, like at this day and age, some people may think, oh, keeping a phone, that's so degenerate, keeping all this stuff. But actually, you have to keep less stuff if you have, let's say, a laptop or an iPad. Let's face it, you can put all your books in there, you can carry them with you. So it's a balancing act. And again, don't force it. Dharma practice is never about forcing. To force yourself is violence. Forcing someone else is violence. Forcing yourself is violence. And you end up going the other direction. Because once you force yourself, then you'll have that opposition, this opposing factor, this opposing force, basically, which, you don't do yourself a favor. It's just the sense, oh no, I can't give this away. Fear, maybe, fear of giving it away, possibly. Which is therefore why do it slowly, take your time with it, and again, generate the motivation just described. Okay, so therefore, serving others through our physical actions makes sense. Body, speech, and mind, right? So mind, of course, is not physical, but mind is mainly the motivation. So we give away our body in the sense that we don't literally give away our body, but benefiting others in the best way possible. Offering our possessions, the way I just said, our motivation should be one of offering, but also practicing generosity. If you have financial problems, don't become stingy. Don't become stingy. That is the biggest problem. Your financial problems will increase. They definitely will increase. There's a difference between not wasting money and becoming like really, like worried. Don't count your money. That's a good way to be generous. Just don't count your money. Just kind of have a rough sense and give as much as you can. And if you count, then right away you're like, oh, but then I don't have that much left. And not a good idea. I don't count my money. I just put it in an envelope and I don't count it. So therefore, you can easily give. And the interesting thing about giving is it comes. And some of the most generous people I know they never have a money problem. Usually not. I mean, of course, sometimes like temporarily they may have a problem. But yeah, so therefore, if you have a money problem, give. Don't be stingy. Because generosity is not about giving huge amounts. Giving a little bit. You see a beggar, you give as much as you can afford. Like 5 rupees, 10 rupees. It's not about that. Or with other people, just Even it doesn't come to you being able to give, but you have the wish to give. It's not like you're holding on to it. That's the problem. Oh, it's mine. I don't want to give it away. That's the problem. Then whatever you give or you do give or not, that's not the thing. It's really about your attitude, which is why generosity is defined as the wish to give, which then gives rise possibly to verbal and physical actions. Okay, so therefore, we offer our physical actions, we offer our possessions, and we offer our merit to others. So we can dedicate our merit for the benefit of others. So you can't literally give your merit to others, but you can mentally think, whatever virtue I've accumulated, may that benefit others. And that way, you make it more powerful, and you're not really literally benefiting others, but you're benefiting others through the virtue you accumulate. If then you engage in actions, of course, definitely helping them, but you're more able to do so through this merit. We protect them by keeping the body healthy. So if we give our body resources and merit to others, I mean, do everything for others, we need to protect them to be able to continue to do so. So keeping the body healthy so it can serve others. We have a personal responsibility to keep healthy, to eat our vegetables. Yeah, and by safeguarding virtue from being undermined or destroyed by negative states such as anger. So for the benefit of others, to not destroy our positive, our virtue by anger, through anger, because that indirectly harms others. We purify them by contemplating that we ourselves as the giver, the body, resources and virtues that are given, the act of giving itself, and the recipient of the gift are all empty of intrinsic existence. So purify here, not in this, well, in the sense of purifying negativity. Well, one of the most powerful ways to purify is through emptiness. Of course, there are certain practices. The practice of Vajrasattva is one example, and many other practices. Prostrations, for instance, doing prostrations. But to reflect on emptiness is also said to be extremely powerful. Why is that so powerful? What is the logic behind it? Must make logically sense. It must make sense. Why is reflecting on the emptiness of any virtuous actions, I mean the virtuous action itself, and then reflecting on the emptiness of it, so powerful from the point of view of purification? Yes?
Because it destroys the ego?
Because it destroys the ego? Okay, yes, that's definitely one reason, but there's another reason. Yes?
Because the negative karmic imprint is based on ignorance?
Because the negative karmic imprints are based on a mind that perceives the opposite of emptiness. All our trouble, all the mess we find ourselves in comes from our root misconception of reality, perceiving phenomena to exist in an independent, objective, and so forth way. Therefore, reflecting on emptiness counteracts that particular mind that is the root of all our trouble. Yeah. And that's true, then therefore, in this way also the self-centeredness is reduced, of course, and that is a huge advantage, absolutely. And we enhance them by repeatedly dedicating the virtues accumulated in this way for the welfare and awakening of all sentient beings. So in this way you have give away, protect, purify, and enhance. It's on the basis of such lived practice, so lived practice that you live, in the sense it's part of your everyday life, that Arya Nagarjuna's compendium of sutras should be understood, not as a work for abstract study, but as practical guidance that leads us step by step along the path. And then he continues with the reading list. Another text, it's really beautiful, is Ayadeva's 400 stanzas, which also presents the overall body of the profound and vast aspects of the path. Okay, so that's what Laman Tsongkhapa says, and then an explanation to that. Another important text is Acharya Nagarjuna's 400 stanzas, or simply 400. In Tibetan, it's called 400. Shikyaba. Shikyaba just means the 400. What does it do? It presents, or what does it present? The overall body of the profound and vast aspects of the path of a bodhisattva. Many sources say, and so who was Acharya Aryadeva? Just to get a feeling for that person. Because for us, they're just names of some old guys, you know, in India, no. But what I think is really beautiful is to create that relation to India at that time. For instance, just for the time of the Buddha, like 2,600 years ago, get a sense of the person Buddha. For instance, when you recite the Heart Sutra, visualize you're there. It sets the scenery. It tells you that's what the Buddha does, that's what everyone else does. You know the place, you know the time, you know the audience. So that's a great opportunity to visualize. I think that's the style of teaching that is so beautiful, like the sutras. They usually, maybe not all of them, but many of them, they describe the scenery. You can actually visualize you there, which makes it much more personal. And making it more personal, it talks to you in a different way, right? So, I don't know, maybe have some music in the background. Why am I saying that with the music? Because I remember Gengetsula, he used to love the Sanskrit chanting, the refuge chanting. It's this beautiful, calm chanting. And it puts your mind into that kind of calm state. You can visualize the Buddha in front of you. It's got that weird thing to it. I can't put it into words, but like recite the Heart Sutra, maybe have that. I can't even repeat, I can't even do it. Like the chanting is such beautiful, like a female chanting. It's like a woman, a lady of Indian origin, I believe, because her Sanskrit pronunciation is flawless, I suppose, from what I understand. So beautiful chanting, and it's the chanting at the time of the Buddha, I guess, and it really puts your mind into that state. I think it's okay. Burn an incense to get your mind into that, but also listen to that music. It's such a beautiful chant, basically. And then recite the Heart Sutra and visualize you're in front of the Buddha. And it's the Buddha now, you're in the presence of the Buddha, you're in the presence of these great beings, and now the Buddha's teaching you, speaking to you. Very different effect. So likewise, getting a sense of the person, who he was. Of course, we all read the life story, but then there are other great beings, Arya Nagarjuna. That's why we read these biographies. Put a face to the name is the wrong expression, because we don't know what they look like. Always got snakes coming out of his head in the case of Arya Nagarjuna, and I can't even tell you who they all are. If they're debating, I suppose, Dharmakirti and Dignaga, because they're very much, well, it's like the logic that they're debating, but they all very much look Tibetan, which means we can't really put a face to the person, but then hearing who they were. So Acharya Aryadeva, who was he? Apparently he was born in Sri Lanka. So we know Sri Lanka, Simhala. He was born as a prince in a royal or Brahmin family. So this is according to some sources. As a prince in a royal or Brahmin family. Okay, we can kind of get a sense of what that means. And it's reported that he renounced his life of privilege and journeyed to India, which wasn't India then, and Sri Lanka wasn't Sri Lanka, you know, like politically, any of that. But anyway, he journeyed to India, where he became one of Arya Nagarjuna's closest disciples, studying with him in South India. Often said to be in the Andhra or Satavahana realm. Very beautiful, this particular area. Just getting a sense of a context. So this particular realm, or this particular area, was the kingdom of the Satavahana dynasty, also known as the Andhras, which flourished from around the 2nd century BC to the 3rd century, so before Christ, 2nd century before Christ to the 3rd century of this common era, in the Deccan region of India, especially in today's Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Telangana. So the Satavahanas, I don't pronounce it correctly, sorry, are known for their patronage of Buddhism. They supported monasteries, cave complexes such as the Ajanta, Ellora, and Karla, and the constructions of stupas, most notably the great Amaravati stupa. So that was a very special time when the government, basically, the kingdom, supported Buddhism, but they also supported the Brahmanical traditions, demonstrating a pluralistic approach to religion. That is so beautiful. That's what India. That's so typical of India, even to this day. I mean, of course, there's sometimes religious tensions, but given the amount of people, the large amount of people, as well as the large country itself, is relatively little. That, you know, religious followers of all religions, basically, all major religions, live in relative harmony with each other and tolerance. India is definitely a very tolerant country. And so this is demonstrated also by the time that this particular kingdom, where everyone was supported. Isn't that beautiful? And nowadays, what was actually the case in India, you find nowadays in the whole world. In India, if you lived in India at that time, you had access to all these different spiritual systems. Now with the internet, living in this world, we have access to all these spiritual systems. So in a way, there's some parallel to this day and age. And of course, it's not as harmonious sometimes in the world. But what I'm saying is just the fact we have access to it. And in general, I think we're raised basically to be, you know, more tolerant, to not to be discriminating. I mean, usually that's more of a desired kind of attitude, isn't it, nowadays? But anyway, still not. Of course, there's still room for improvement. So having said this, going back to Acharya Ayadeva, I know I'm going off topic a little bit, but I want to make that connection. You know, you read their books, you want to know who they were, that they were special. Arya Nagarjuna's disciple, I mean, wow, you know, he didn't have that many disciples, or important disciples, so he was definitely one of them. Giving up a life of such privilege, not easy. I mean, how many people are born to the sons and daughters of prime ministers, have everything at their feet, their servants, and they just give it all up. It's easy if you don't have much to give it up, but if you have a lot. Yeah, so really get a sense, wow. He's generally placed in the 3rd century of this common era, CE or AD, and became renowned as both a scholar and a formidable debater. Of course, he was also an incredible practitioner, but that doesn't even need to be said. But here, in terms of his book, he was an incredible scholar, and he had a very good understanding. He was remembered for defeating many non-Buddhist teachers of his time, which doesn't mean, it seems like they were in a fight with each other, but that was just this exchange of knowledge, like learning from each other, debating with each other, but defeating here, that just showed that he was really good at his arguments, and was so celebrated for his ability to present the Dharma with both sharp philosophical analysis and practical guidance. So that's a little bit about Ayadeva. Yes?
Did he and Arya Nagarjuna live at the same time?
Yes. But then Arya Nagarjuna must have lived for a long time, which the Tibetans say, yes, he did. Pardon?
For 200 years.
Some say there were different kind of Nagarjunas. You see, some say Nagarjuna was born around the 2nd century of AD, of this common era. So then he was in the 3rd century, they could have met, right? Kind of, barely. But then some Tibetan sources seem to place Nagarjuna before, not of this common era, but before Christ. So then it's a bit like either and they said he lived for a really long time. So this, I'm not sure, I don't know. Some people would say, yeah, well, maybe he lived for a long time because of his meditational abilities, these life-extending practices we all hear about. But, you know, there are no witnesses around to say, yeah, he was around 300 years. I remember there's not many witnesses. So maybe he was able to do that. Maybe there was more than one Nagarjuna. That's another theory that scholars have.
Do we have texts of both commenting on each other?
Pardon?
Do we have texts of we have texts of Ayadeva commenting on Arya Nagarjuna? Or do we have texts of commenting on Acharya Ayadeva?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I'm only familiar with this particular text. There are definitely commentaries that do mention that Acharya Ayadeva was the disciple of Arya Nagarjuna. But whether it's in their writings, I seem to remember something No, that was something else. Sorry, I got confused. No, I don't remember something. But the thing is that I'm pretty sure that Acharya Ayadeva, he would mention Arya Nagarjuna. I just don't know where, because I only know his text, the 400, and I don't think it doesn't mention him in there. So I don't know. So his 400, anyway, most important is, of course, his text itself, and that is definitely based on Arya Nagarjuna's writing. His 400 is arranged in 16 chapters, each containing 25 verses, making up a total of 400. It's valued for the way it unites practical training with philosophical insight. It's really beautiful and quoted a lot. The first half focuses on methods to weaken attachment, arrogance, and other afflictions, as well as on cultivating morality and compassion. The latter chapters turn to Madhyamika reasoning, presenting careful refutations of non-Buddhist views and establishing the ultimate nature of phenomena. For this reason, the 400 stanzas came to be regarded in India and Tibet alike as systematic account of how the Bodhisattva's vast practices and profound wisdom complement one another. In Tibet, it became a key text in the study of Madhyamika. Okay, so that's just about the text, and there's of course a great translation. I put it in the footnote, so the text is available, translated by Ruth Surnam, with the commentary of Gyaltsabje, and with an additional explanation by Geshe Sonam Rinchen. It's a really nice text. It's quite accessible with a commentary. That's always helpful. Gyaltsabje's commentary, and of course Geshe Sonam Rinchen's explanation. So in Tibet, it became one of the key texts in the study of Madhyamika. Now, when you study Madhyamika, really the texts to study, there are not that many. Considering that there have been great masters for more than 2,600 years, it's not like you have like a whole library you have to read. Here's Lama Tsongkhapa's giving us this reading list. Number 1, of course, the 4 texts by Arya Nagarjuna. So these are the ones Acharya Chandrakirti mentions. What are these 4 texts? Number 1, Fundamental Wisdom. Number 2, Precious Garland. Number 3, Praise to Dhammadhatu, or Ultimate Expanse. Number 4, Compendium of Sutras. Very good. Then of the commentaries, commentator number 1 mentioned after these texts, Shantideva, yeah. Then Acharya Ayadeva. Too many A's for me to be able to pronounce it properly. Acharya Ayadeva. Yes, exactly. And then he continues. He says, furthermore, so he's basically telling us, just don't ignore them. Pay attention to them. So he now quotes 3, or he cites the text of 3, or he gives us the text of 3, who are not even prasangikas. And still, they're not followers of the highest Buddhist views, but they're really good to study, because first of all, their explanations in general are incredible, but they're also a good preparation. So furthermore, the presentations on the overall structure of the path, especially on the path, in condensed form is found in Bhava Viveka's Essence of the Middle Way, Shantarakshita's Ornament of the Middle Way, and Kamalashila's Stages of the Meditation on the Middle Way, are all similar. Therefore, when it comes to the basic framework of the path, all the great upholders of the noble Nagarjuna's tradition converge. Again, 3 great masters, so the same overall structure, therefore, of the path is also presented in concise form by 3 later masters, later than Acharya Ayadeva of the Madhyamika. Acharya Bhava Viveka in his Essence of the Middle Way, Acharya Chantarakshita in his Ornament of the Middle Way, and Arya Kamalashila in his Stages of Meditation. While they differ in certain philosophical details, their presentation of the Bodhisattva path, its key stages and practices, follow a very similar structure. Number 1 is Acharya Bhava Viveka. Bhaviveka. Oh, there's different spellings. Okay. Bhava Viveka. I think I should spell it the way I pronounce it. Bhavivika or Bhava Viveka. Also known as Bhavya, was an early Madhyamika master from South India. Again, South India was really I mean, there were also, of course, great masters, even from Kashmir, what's nowadays called Kashmir. But South India was, a lot of the masters, came from South India in particular. Was an early Madhyamika master from South India, remembered for his sharp dialectical style and for insisting on the use of autonomous syllogisms in debate. So there are the two methods. How do you convince another person? How do you, not convince in the sense, in the negative way, but reason with another person? How do you reason? What's the most effective way to reason with someone so that they can overcome certain extreme views? There's the method of saying, you're wrong because, A is B because of C. So A is not B, A is not B because of C, or A is B because of C. So whatever you use for A, B, and C. It seems kind of logical, okay. Phenomena don't exist inherently because they are interdependent, or phenomena don't exist intrinsically because a phenomenon cannot be found to exist intrinsically as one with its parts or separate from its parts, for instance. So that seems to be logically, that makes sense. And in the high school, the Prasangika school, they don't refute the usage of these kind of logical syllogisms, but they say there's something even more effective. So this is where Baba Viveka is slightly different from Arya Nagarjuna, for instance. So Acharya Baba Viveka differs from Arya Nagarjuna or Acharya Chandakirti, who are both followers of the Prasangika. What do they say? They say, it's good to say A is not B because it's not C, but even more effective is to point out what? The contradictions of their view. Don't just say, oh no, it doesn't exist intrinsically. Say like, let's assume it exists intrinsically, right? That's such an effective method. Let's just think according to your assertion. Let's see what happens. And then you can point out all these contradictions. Nothing could depend on anything else. Nothing could change, right? There wouldn't be communication. Just kind of rolling it out, just presenting all these contradictions. Then the other person themselves can go, oh, wait a minute. No, that's extreme. And it's not just about mentioning one contradiction, like about impermanence, for instance. Impermanence, although it's not as difficult to understand as emptiness, but it's a great preparation for impermanence. So we should actually spend more time on reflecting on subtle impermanence, how everything is constantly changing, everything is changing. The I is changing, I'm changing. So where's that I that seems to be there the whole time? So to reflect on that repeatedly. But then we can apply also when we find we have contradictory views. It's all about introspection, it's all about self-reflection, holding on to things. When we have attachment, we always hold on to permanence. Right? If we have attachment, we hold on to this situation being the same. We hold on to, this person being the same. We hold on to ourselves being the same. That I need to protect as if it was always the same. So permanence is somehow involved, the sense of permanence. And then to apply the contradiction or the absurdity if we really were permanent. If we really were permanent, what would that mean? Right? So in that way, you don't need someone else to do it. You can do it with yourself. But that's a very effective way to just think, if things were really permanent, what would that mean? And in the end, you see, oh no, that doesn't make any sense. It's impossible that they are. All right, anyway, but Baba Viveka doesn't accept that this kind of technique of pointing out the consequences is effective. No, he says syllogisms, autonomous syllogisms, and that makes him a follower of the Svatantrika. Not the highest, not the Prasangika, but the Svatantrika. So remember, which led later, therefore, because of his assertions, later Tibetan scholars classify him as a Svatantrika. But since he also accepted the existence of phenomena external to the mind, he is described as following the Sautantrika, Svatantrika, Madhyamika interpretation. So Sautantrika means external existence, like the Sautantrika, external existence. So that's just implying external existence. Svatantrika Madhyamika means he was a follower of the middle way school, but accepted inherent existence. So he said phenomena exist externally, just as the Prasangika school asserted. But, so despite these complicated names, but it's really important what's behind it. Because if you reflect on emptiness, what is the I? It's so important, it's such an important meditation. When His Holiness talks about emptiness, usually he says, oh, who is the Dalai Lama? Right? Good question. If we have faith in His Holiness, we believe in His Holiness, we definitely perceive His Holiness to be a little bit more inherently existent than a serial killer or whatever, right? Someone we don't care for. That's the tendency we have. The more important someone becomes to you, the more inherently existent they seem. So His Holiness is a good example. It seems to be inherently wonderful, inherently a great practitioner, and so on, compassionate. So when you start thinking about this, where's this I? Where's the essence of His Holiness? There's a mind, there's a body. Based on that, we label His Holiness. Where is it when it comes to this really important I? This really important person, right? We may not be aware of it, but we feel this is everything, isn't it? I mean, we really need to get in touch with that. And on a daily basis, just think, where is this I? Where is it? Or when you get insulted, that's a good time to do it. Someone has just insulted you. Someone has just, where is it? Where's the insult? Yeah, to reflect it in that way. But what we come to see sooner or later, it's a little bit like weird. There's no I that can be found. I take apart mind and body. I don't find an I. I take apart the mind even further. And I can't say the mind is the person because the I is constantly, there's a sense the I is always the same, but the mind is always different. Right? When you're awake, there's an I. When you're asleep, there's an I. I mean, when you wake up in the morning, I slept. There's no sense it was like a totally different I. It's like that the same sense of the I we have at all times, but the I, the mind that is active is always different. So like, if it's the subtle mind, is it the coarse mind? It's none of them. Anyway, so if we start to reflect on this, and it's something, like I said, we should do daily, but if there's nothing there, it feels like you get something out of nothing. And then you're really happy for the Svatantrikas. Kind of like, they say everything that the Prasangika says, but they say, do find something. Oof. Initially, it helps. It really helps. Because otherwise you feel like someone pulls the rug underneath your feet. There's nothing there. Which is why, yeah, we learn about this school and there's a sense, okay, there's another option, there's another school. And when you learn about them, your mind becomes more flexible to think along the lines, think like a Prasangika person. And all that's left at the very end is like, pull it away, it's okay. Right? That's what they say. Like, even if they pull the rug underneath their feet, like there's nothing that you can find. Your mind has become so flexible that you can grasp it and it's not overwhelming. That's why the Svatantrika school as a preparation is so helpful. Yeah. Okay, so that's anyway, that's Bhava Viveka. Acharya Bhava Viveka. His life coincided with the flourishing of Buddhist scholasticism, and he became known for his vigorous debates with non-Buddhist thinkers as well as with followers of the Chitta Matra, the mind-only school. He systematized Arya Nagarjuna's philosophy in his Essence of the Middle Way, or Madhyamika, can't even say it, Madhyamika Dayakarika. Okay, accompanied by his auto-commentary, the auto-commentary on this particular text, on this Essence of the Middle Way, which is called Place of Reasoning. Also a very important text. Place of Reasonings, in the what do you call them, footnotes, you can see the English translations. Unfortunately, the Place of Reasoning hasn't been completely translated into English, but whatever I could find in English, I put there. This work presents Madhyamika, or the Middle Way system, systematically, while also critiquing other Buddhist and non-Buddhist system, making it one of the earliest comprehensive presentation of tenets in India. So the first tenet text, basically, where you have all the different tenet systems roughly explained, is found in this text. So Tibetans read this text to this day. There's, of course, a Tibetan translation, which is very good. And so they study these texts. And again, we can too. Then there's our Acharya Shantarakshita, who came even later. So here the birth date is, I guess, pretty certain, so 770, 725 and so forth, was one of India's greatest scholar abbots and a key figure in the early transmission of Buddhism to Tibet. For the Tibetans, he's so important. He was born in Bengal. He studied extensively at the great monastic university of Nalanda, one of the great Nalanda masters, where he became a master of both Madhyamika reasoning and Buddhist logic. And he was invited to Tibet. Very important, His Holiness speaks about him a lot, by the Tibetan king Tisun Detsen in the 8th century, and became the founding abbot of Samye. So the first monastery in Tibet, called Samye, was founded by him, and he became the abbot of this monastery. And he laid the institutional foundations for Buddhism in Tibet. Who laid the foundations of the tantric system in Tibet? Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, yeah. So Guru Rinpoche and Shantarakshita were around at the same time, but Guru Rinpoche took care of the tantric, the Vajrayana tradition, and of course also took care of subduing some of the forces in Tibet that were very much against the Dharma, so even non-human forces. And Shantarakshita was more the conventional kind of, he started the institution of Buddhism in Tibet. He is remembered for integrating Madhyamika with Yogacarya, mind only, and Buddhist logic. A synthesis called Yogacarya Svatantrika Madhyamika. The first philosophy that came to Tibet was not Prasangika. It was Svatantrika. And it was Svatantrika based on Shantarakshita's view, which was, when we say Yogacarya, which is another word for mind only, we don't mean that he was a follower of mind only. But he asserted there was no external existence. Phenomena don't exist external to the mind. But he was still a follower of the Svatantrika. You seem to think, like, how does that work? Well, there's one great distinction. In the Chittamatra school, they say nothing exists externally. They say, therefore, nothing exists truly, there's no true external existence. In other words, external phenomena don't exist truly because there's no external phenomena. But the mind exists truly, and there are a lot of other phenomena that exist truly. While Shantarakshita says nothing exists external to the mind, yes, but even the mind doesn't exist truly. Nothing, all phenomena lack true existence. Whereas in the Chittamatra school, they give they assert that at least impermanent phenomena that are not external, as well as the mind, including the mind, they exist truly. They have a special type of more concrete existence than everything else. While Shantarakshita, as a follower of the Svatantrika school, says nothing exists truly. And on top of that, nothing exists externally. Okay? But even the mind is not given that kind of concrete existence. So just roughly speaking, which shows these different views, they're like, you can adopt some part of one school, but you move on to another one. Shantarakshita did hold some aspects of the Chittamatra school, but it's still unique in other assertions. His view was still unique in other assertions. And it's just helpful to study them because it prepares the mind for a deeper view. Anyway, so that was Shantarakshita. So his Ornament of the Middle Way is a concise, vast treatise which outlines the essential structures of the Bodhisattva path. Again, as part of the reading list, we should read his text. Has it been translated? Yes. Oh yeah, by Jamgun or by Ju Mipam. Translated by the Pamakara translation group. So that's definitely something to read if you want. Okay, and then there's Acharya Kamalashila, the foremost disciple of Acharya Shantarakshita, forgot Acharya, to put there, a sign of respect. Just a sec.
A with macron, C, A with macron, O, Y, A.
I don't know where that came from. Okay, so Acharya Shantarakshita carried forward his teacher's work of establishing Indian Buddhism in Tibet. Born in northern India, he's from northern India, he trained at Nalanda before accompanying Acharya Shantarakshita's mission to Tibet. He's especially famous, he came a little later, it didn't come with him. He's especially famous for his role in the Samya debate, where he defended the gradual path of Indian Buddhism against the sudden approach of Chinese Chan masters, a decision that profoundly shaped the future of Tibetan Buddhism. So in Tibet, of course, there was a time when Buddhism came to Tibet, and Buddhism had already gone to China. And in China, there was a particular tradition, was very prevalent, called Chan Buddhism, the Chan tradition, which I guess in Japan then developed into Zen Buddhism, which again is slightly different. But I don't know whether Chan Buddhism today is the same as it was then. However, at that time in India, when Buddhism came to Tibet from China as well as from India, well, when it came from India, it was based on the Nalanda masters, who very much believed in the structured kind of study and debate, of course, first a good understanding, and then a gradual practice of the path. But then there were other assertions that believed the study wasn't necessary, absolutely. I mean, it was most important about practice, and you should overcome any thoughts. Thoughts are bad in general. So not distinguishing between those thoughts that are helpful for our practice. Of course, eventually we overcome all thoughts. A Buddha doesn't have thoughts, doesn't have a conceptual mind. But in the meantime, we can utilize certain helpful thoughts, helpful conceptual ideas or conceptual minds in order to attain then the non-conceptual mind of a Buddha. So anyway, there was this whole debate, and luckily that the fact we have this type of Buddhism today is, I mean, one of the reasons was Shantarakshita and Kamalashila, because Kamalashila won the debate. Therefore, Tibetans decided, the king at the time decided, okay, that's more convincing. This Nalanda tradition of Buddhism is more convincing, so please move on. To the monk, he told him to move on and spread his message somewhere else. And it was this Nalanda tradition that took root in Tibet. Yeah. So anyway, so our Acharya Kamalashila also authored a very important text called The Stages of Meditation, or Bhavana Krama, or Gomrim, also translated into English. Actually, 3 related treatises which systematically set out the Bodhisattva path step by step, integrating Madhyamika philosophy with meditation training. These 3 works became foundational in Tibet for uniting philosophical study with meditative practice. All right, so this was maybe a little bit boring if you're not interested in these masters, but actually it's so important to study all of them because they all have a slightly different approach. And if it's available in English, there's always something you understand. And then reading them definitely gives you a fuller understanding, definitely, of the Bodhisattva path. So anyway, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, pay attention to them. Go back to the source of these great masters. Okay. So taken together, the works of Acharya Bhavaviveka, again I spelled it differently, Bhavaviveka, Acharya Shantarakshita and Acharya Kamalashila show that although they differ in philosophical orientation, Shantarakshita and Kamalashila presenting a Yogacara Svatantrika Madhyamika approach, while Bhavaviveka follows a Satantrika Svatantrika Madhyamika view, sorry it's a mouthful, they nevertheless agree on the broad structure of the Bodhisattva path. And that's what we're interested in. The emptiness comes later. Their emptiness, we compare them, but most important, the Bodhisattva path is the same. They affirm the continuity of Arya Nagarjuna's tradition and provide a common framework that later Tibetan masters such as Lama Tsongkhapa would draw upon. So Lama Tsongkhapa very much relied on them. The Tibetan tradition, in fact, relied on all these masters. And then, after this reading list, he says, well, if you don't understand all this, there's another option that's easier, which is the Great Lamrim. So as for a method, now Lama Tsongkhapa literally says, as for a method that would easily bring forth ascertainment of these points, an approach that is most accessible for those on the beginner stage, I have presented an approach to guiding others on the path that is extremely easy to understand in my stages of the path to enlightenment, representing the instruction of glorious Dipamkara, Atisha, most learned in the systems of the two great charioteers. Thus one can learn from there. Okay, so in explanation to that, the works of course, Arya Nagarjuna, Acharya Ayadeva, Acharya Bhava Viveka, the great Bodhisattva Shantarakshita, and Acharya Kamalashila, they present the path in profound and often demanding ways. Not easy. They're also very terse. The texts are really short. They're not that extensive, given the difficulty of getting books printed and paper and pen and so forth. It made sense that they're pretty short. There's also a simpler and more accessible method for beginners to gain certainty about these same points. This easier approach is found in Lama Tsongkhapa's various works on the stages of the path to enlightenment. So all the different Lamrim books, and you have a list of the more important ones, the great, at least 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 of them, and they're all have been translated into English. Now, if you're interested, yeah, so there's ways to read them. And Lama Tsongkhapa explains that his presentation follows the instructions of the great master Jo Atisha Dipamkara, who is deeply learned in the traditions of Arya Nagarjuna, the charioteers or trailblazer of the Madhyamika school. So Nagarjuna, he introduced and he established basically the Madhyamika school. And then there was Arya Asanga. We haven't mentioned him much. He was the trailblazer of the mind-only school, the Chittamatra school. He basically took it from the Buddha's teachings. Based on the Buddha's teachings, he delineated clearly, this is the Chittamatra school. This is what you can take literally when it comes to the Chittamatra school, and this is what needs to be interpreted. So he interpreted basically the Buddha's teachings. Based on the Buddha's teachings, he could clearly tell, this is Chittamatra. This is such an important view that again helps our mind so profoundly to prepare it for the view of Prasangika. That's why we learn it. So you may think it's really overwhelming and difficult, and yes, it is. But the point is, however difficult, and then I don't have the sense I fully understand it. Not at all. I don't care. What is important is that I can feel the effect on my own mind. Like, it's just how our mind works. I mean, with what is it called? Neuroplasticity, right? I mean, that of course refers to our brain, but that also means our mind has that same plasticity. And thus, it can change. We can expand it. We can expand our understanding in what seems impossibly difficult now. I mean, when I started studying, it was like, I never understand this. This is impossible. This is so complicated. But the beauty is that over time, which is not that long, you realize, oh, I can understand it. Oh, in the beginning I didn't, but now, sometimes as simply as hearing it again and again, you understand it. It's just how the mind becomes more flexible. And thus, eventually you'll understand emptiness. Of course, everyone is able to understand emptiness. But these different schools, they help the mind to make the mind, they prepare the mind in a really profound way. Okay. But if for the time being you find them overwhelming, well, the Lamrim texts are a good choice. Yeah. Okay. So that's this outline, one outline that we now finished in preparation, basically. So Lama Tsongkhapa starts with a long preparation, basically, and I made it even longer. Sorry for that. Yeah, but hopefully it's a little clearer that way. And then the next outline, the next heading for the next outline is how to practice on, not just in general, so that was just a general kind of overview. Now, how to practice on the ordinary person stage in particular. This section starts with a question. this treatise means, well, I'll explain it in a moment, in my mind. So if this treatise presents systematically both the profound and vast aspects of the Bodhisattva path, as well as their results, which constitute the object of attainment, then the stages of the path of the ordinary person, which are so important for the Bodhisattvas, should have been presented immediately after the homage, after the salutation. But this is not the case. Instead, the text begins directly with the presentation of the grounds of Arya beings. How could this be right? So, to explain it, someone raises a question about what the structure of Acharya Chandrakirti's text, entering the middle way. Why does it not begin in the expected order? It's always very important, the sequence of things. Obviously, I mean, it makes a difference. Because the treatise aims to present the Bodhisattva path in a complete and systematic way, covering its profound and vast aspects as well as the results to be attained, it would seem natural to start with the Bodhisattva path of accumulation and preparation, right? Why do you start at these advanced stages? These are called ordinary, the Bodhisattva level, the path of accumulation and preparation. They're called ordinary because they precede the direct realization of emptiness on the path of seeing. So first you go through the path of accumulation, then the path of preparation, and then you realize emptiness directly. But yet they're so crucial because they describe how practitioners cultivate the causes that eventually lead to becoming Arya Bodhisattvas. So it's actually important to understand them. But instead, this treatise opens with the presentation of the grounds of Arya beings, those who have already directly realized emptiness. The question then naturally arises, why bypass the ordinary stages and begin straight away with the advanced ones? Okay. And then the reply is, of course, the stages of the path of the ordinary person were already actually presented already in the context of the salutation verse. So it's not explained at this point here. By presenting the three principal causes, compassion, bodhicitta, and non-dual awareness on the basis of practicing which one becomes a bodhisattva, it was shown that those who wish to enter the great vehicle must first cultivate these three factors. Not only must these three be practiced at the outset, they must also be practiced even, may I saying, so Lama Tsongkhapa mentions, of course, a certain understanding. Again, it may be helpful in this text. So the good news is they're really short. They're not that long. Not like the Lamrim. Is it working now? Okay, thank you. They're not like the Lamrim Chemo or something. Those are also really long. And it's not about feeling overwhelmed, but seeing the different possibilities. Yeah. Aidan, what do you think? That was mean. No, sorry, you don't need to say anything. I thought if you had anything that comes to mind, I mean, anything that you maybe find relevant in terms of personal practice.
I mean, I don't necessarily hold the view, necessarily say that Prasangika is the highest view, say, right?
Yeah.
So I think studying other views, but they all say it's good to study them from the people, the proponents of those views.
Yes.
And not from the people who are refuting those views.
It's good to study them from the point of view of those who follow the Prasangika school.
No, follow whichever view that you're studying.
Right.
So if you study, Prasangika from Lama Tsongkhapa,
Yes.
like you just said that Mr. Martins believed that the mind is inherent in existing. Right?
Yes.
That's not necessarily the view that people who follow Chitta Martin Yogacara would say.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're saying that the way Lama Tsongkhapa, especially in the Giluk system,
whoever it is, the other ones, whatever the proponents of a particular view are,
right?
They tend to present the other views in a certain kind of way.
Oh, yes. Okay. So.
Be careful.
Yes, you're right. Okay, so what you're saying is, does the way in which sometimes these other schools, other systems different to the Prasangika, so other than the Prasangika school are presented, do they really literally present the view as it existed in India? Right? Because we don't know. The Buddha taught all these different philosophical schools, of course, remind you, as the Buddha went around India, walked around to the different places, had different disciples, he taught these philosophical views according to whoever was the main disciple or was the main audience in a particular situation. He taught sometimes Chittamatra, sometimes Tantrika, sometimes Vaisheshika. Why? Because he knew this person, for this person this was helpful. So temporarily these teachings were beneficial. And of course it was then to later on for them to be introduced to a different school. So just to prepare their mind. But of course the Buddha taught for more than 50, almost 50 years. I don't know more, like around 50 years. So a long time, and daily, the whole time. So they were followers of the Chittamatra school at the time when the Buddha was around. Later on, did they all have this view that is sometimes described in the texts? No, I don't think so. I think there were a lot more variations. But the reason why, for instance, in this particular tradition, and it's not unique to this tradition, of course, but taking this tradition as an example, they take a particular Chittamatra view, a particular Sautrantrika view, Vaisheshika view. And whether it's historically accurate is not important. It's not about historical accuracy. It's about that step-by-step approach. Kind of like if you think of the Prasangika school being really deep. That's how usually it's really deep and profound. So think it's like you want to go really deep into the ground. If you jump into, you just hurt yourself and you're not going to enjoy being in that deep spot. So you take step by step, you're walking down, right? Step by step, you're going deeper and deeper and deeper. Maybe it's like climbing up Mount Everest, put it the other way around. You can't just go up there, you can't breathe. You have to get used to, right? Anyway, never mind, whichever analogy you use. But the point is you prepare your mind slowly. And therefore, these different schools, they're like stepping stones. They're like steps on the ladder going deeper and deeper and deeper. And if in the end there was never a Chittamatra person, no one cares. Basically, it's not important. But as I said at some point, I think during the last term I said it, if you look at the 4 schools, they have a very interesting progression. And I repeat it here for those who weren't here. So the 2 schools, the Vaibhashika and the Sautrantrika, what's so amazing about them is that they basically say phenomena exist out there. Externally, there's an objective reality, the way it appears to us. So phenomena externally exist truly. That's very comforting because I believe what I see, all of you see. And I see it because it's out there. I don't think it has to do anything with my mind. I'm even going beyond what scientists say. Light waves, pressure waves, colors don't exist. You're kidding me? There's a beautiful yellow over there. I'm attached to certain objects because of their color. So you tell me it's just light waves? Yeah, right. Somewhere in my head, okay, but emotionally, no. So the Sautrantrika school, what's so great, Sautrantrika and Vaibhashika, is that they first of all introduce exactly that idea, but they do tell us about the I. They do say things such as, okay, the I doesn't exist as this solid permanent entity, doesn't exist independently of mind and body. It's not even like the utilizer of mind. So it definitely introduces us to a coarser selflessness. Okay? So selfishness, all that is the root cause of our trouble. It talks about our experiences on a daily basis. They seem to be pure happiness, but they're not. All that kind of introducing us to these ideas. So the mind becomes more flexible when it comes to the I, etc. But external phenomena, they don't touch. Impermanence is important. Things change all the time. Mind and body, the environment, everything changes, situations, experiences. So it's a great preparation. However, everything exists externally. So the way it seems to be, the way it feels, right? The way it feels. And then I learn about the Chittamatra school. So I go from here to here. Nothing exists out there. There's only mind. So previously, when I learned the other schools and when I lived my daily life anyway, the mind is of no importance. right? I mean, especially nowadays, you can get away with the scientific view. Mind doesn't really exist. It's just a side effect of the brain. So mind is out. In the Vaibhashika and the Satantrika school, they don't pay that much attention to the mind. They do explain it in general, but not like everything exists because there's mind. Not really. Then you have this other extreme view. Nothing is out there. It's only the mind. Everything comes from the mind, arises from the mind. We don't talk about colors and so forth, but only because they appear to the mind. So in other words, we're dreaming about colors, therefore colors exist. Kind of idea. We're all dreaming. We're all dreaming. And all there is mind. And why do we dream things? Because we leave imprints in our mind. Our mind creates reality. It's not just that nothing exists out there, but everything we experience comes from our mind. Thoughts we had in the past lead to the appearances to our mind now. The appearance of having our stuff stolen, the appearance of being insulted, right? We're just dreaming. It's powerful, isn't it? If you really think like that, how can I get angry with someone out there if they're just appearing to my mind? How can I be so attached to this blue cushion that is just an appearance to my mind? Yeah? So that already changes the neurons in our brain, the synapses, everything. I mean, things change. Our mind starts changing. It pays more attention to our own mind. It pays more attention to our own mind. It puts more emphasis on personal responsibility, right? It's not like stuff is happening to me and I just perceive it and therefore I get angry. No, everything changes dramatically. So you see this change. So they say nothing exists out there truly. The first two schools would say everything exists out there truly. Everything, in fact, exists truly, including the external world. The Chittamatra says nothing exists truly out there, only the mind. Okay? So, those two. And now, Madhyamika. Madhyamika. So you have the Madhyamika that says nothing exists truly. Without a mind, you couldn't have the external, you couldn't have the internal. But there's still an essence. If you look for the I, you find something. If you look for this being a table, the essence of a table, you find something. It doesn't exist truly. It can't exist without appearing to a mind, which is also true for the mind itself. It doesn't exist truly, different to the Chittamatra school. It equally lacks true existence. And then still there's some who would say external phenomena exist and some would say they don't exist, but they all agree. So Baba Viveka and Shantarakshita, there's some difference, but the point is whether they tend more towards the Chittamatra or not, the point is they all agree nothing exists truly. If you don't have mind, you can't have anything. Nothing can exist. But there's still you can find something. You look for the I, you look for the mind. There's still an essence there, right? So it's like let go of something, but inherent existence you can still hold on to, which is the deepest level that we're dealing with, and that is not taken away from us. And then Prasangika, taken away. That last bit is taken away. So you see, in the end, it's just how it prepares the mind. Pedagogically, it's so skillful, isn't it? Yeah. So whether they existed that way, who cares? Maybe they're misrepresented, but it's not about representing them correctly. No one is saying they need to be represented correctly. It's not about historical accuracy. In fact, Tibetans don't have it, and I don't think the great Indian masters don't have. The historical accuracy is not, the emphasis is not much on that. Like Arya Nagarjuna's biography, I mean, it's like maybe this, maybe that, not sure. So we have some basic details that you go through in like a short paragraph, done. Don't really know about him. It was more important to preserve the words, the teachings, not the historical accuracy. It's inspiring, to hear their lives, but they didn't, paper and pens were not wasted to note this down because it was difficult to write things down. So their teachings were considered to be more important. Yeah, so in answer to, therefore, Aiden's question, yeah, there is no historical, it's not necessarily historically accurate. Yeah. Depends on who you talk, but I don't think it was. Depends on who you ask, yeah. Yes.
So I'm very new to the different schools, and just to clarify, is there like a differentiation that this one is better, worse, more true, or not like the best?
Well, they say the Prasangika is the most accurate school. That's the one we're studying in this text. In general, but what is for us personally at the time being most helpful is a different question. But yes, in general they say if there was inherent existence, because all the schools accept inherent existence, except the Prasangika. So the Prasangika would argue if inherent existence were to exist, there were all these absurdities. But that's what we learn about. So let's see whether the arguments that are given here, whether they really make sense. Yes?
So this is just, I have an assumption, but I wanted to check it.
Yes, please.
So I have discussions with someone that is from the Theravada tradition. And talking to him, it seems they don't, they don't. When I asked him what they think about Shantideva or Nagarjuna, he thought it's deities.
Deities?
Yeah, he thought I'm talking about deities, and he's like, no, we don't believe in these deities.
Okay. Yeah.
And I have the feeling that they believe in one of the schools with the external existence.
Right, okay.
Like, is the Pali canon related to one of the four schools in Tibet or not?
Yes. Okay, so is the Pali, so just to repeat your question, I forgot to repeat them earlier, but what you know someone from the Theravada tradition and they don't know about Shantideva, about Chandakirti, they don't know about them. And also, is the Pali tradition, like their philosophical view, is it based on any of the four traditions? That's very difficult to answer. Why? Because the vocabulary is slightly different. So I would have to learn, first of all, the Pali tradition based on their vocabulary. So first I have to study it. But I would think, personally, I think it's Prasangika. I think it's the highest school. I think. Whether they formulate it in that way or not. I mean, you know what I learned from one great master, with a group of people, I went to see one great Tibetan master. His name is Dzongsa Khensa Rinpoche. They just asked for an audience and I went with them. And he said this, and I told you many times, many of you, but just for the sake of this answer. So he said that the Buddha diluted the teachings because the teachings are like a laser beam, which you can't see, so he spray painted the laser beam. Okay? So in other words, the truth, like the Prasangika view, or any of these deepest views, they're beyond words. How can you express, like the moment we use words, we fall into this sense of something truly there. The moment we use words, that's just how our mind works. So the moment we conceptualize it, we perceive it to exist truly there, over there. But what can you do? If you realize emptiness, by just looking at me, I won't understand what you've realized. So all you can use is words, and words are very limited, and words can be interpreted in different ways, which is why the truth can be expressed in the Theravada way. It can be expressed in the Tibetan Buddhist way. It can be expressed in so many different ways. But first, we need to learn it, then go beyond the words and understand what's really the meaning behind it. But from the point of view of this system, with inherent existence just not making sense, first of all, so if you go through the logic, and at the same time, without realizing the lack of such intrinsic existence, you can't become liberated or enlightened, and there are obviously liberated beings in the Theravadan tradition. It would be ridiculous to say they aren't. They have been around for so many thousands of years. If they didn't have these high realizations of liberation, why would they still be around? So therefore, I believe what they realize is the Prasangika view, but they just express it very differently. So just call it something different. So and again, you can spray paint it with blue color, with white color, with red color. It's different colors, like different words, trying to get at the same thing. Yeah, so that's my view. And the Tibetan version sometimes of the universal, of the foundational, does also not necessarily reflect the Theravada tradition, because there's so many different versions. The Buddha taught the foundational vehicle to so many different people. And there's a version that went to Tibet as the foundation for the universal vehicle. And there's a different, so again, I believe that the Buddha came in the 21st century, now, not 2,600 years ago. So let's say there was no Buddhism the last 2,600 years. And now the Buddha came and introduced it. Very different explanation. Very different. He would teach using science. That was the prevalent kind of view, right? Yeah. But in answer to your question, which you didn't ask about that, what I'm just saying, but yeah, I believe it's the Prasangika view. That's my belief, but I don't know. Okay, great. Oh my God, there were really some problems with the internet, right? Oops. But anyway, we have the recording, so later on.
It's working now.
It's working now, great.
Just 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay. There were a few things here as well, unless you have any questions. Yes, go ahead, yeah. And then I go into the, yeah.
So my question is about, like this 4 different schools explains this intellectually differently.
Yes.
But just the intellectual understanding is not enough. You
No.
have to experience, realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like our subconscious or the shadow mind has to also, it needs to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
So do they have different approaches to realize also, like to experience it also?
Okay. Are there different approaches? First of all, just learning about the different schools. I'll just repeat it for the recording. So there are different schools, and it's difficult just learning, just briefly speaking about them. It's impossible to really understand what they mean. So are there ways to actually not just understand them intellectually, but also practice them to a certain degree? Well, yeah, I mean, the first step, of course, is learning them. So learning them, understanding them, and then think of the world according to their views, basically. Try to see them in that way. Now, when we studied this, for a few months, we studied Chittamatra, and our teachers encouraged us, try to see it that way, because when we debate also, for instance, when you debate, now you have to answer like the Chittamatra person. So you have to think like them. Really put yourself into their shoes, think like them, answer like that. And before long, because you're learning that all the time, your mind becomes very much influenced. Oh, it's all in my mind. It's just in my mind. And it's like, wow, that's just mind. And in the end, like I always say, the Chittamatra, for instance, only the mind only, in the end, you never really give up the Chittamatra view, not to the degree as you may think. Right? Saying that the mind doesn't exist inherently, okay. But other than that, it's like really just in the mind. My reality is what appears to my mind. There's nothing beyond my reality. And that's true for all of you. So what other reality is there? Really, if you think about it. And every time it seems like there's something out there, it's contradicted even by common sense. Beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, right? That, I mean, whether it's beautiful or not, whether it's a table or not, it depends on who sees it. Right? How much you can see. There's so much we can't see. What is in this room right now, talking about microwaves and radiation, kind of, I don't know what other radiation. So there's microwaves and ultrasound and whatever, all these waves and stuff. We can't see them. The frequency of sound we can perceive, very limited. The lights, the colors we see, again, very. So what I see is very limited. It's an interpretation of my brain, which is true from a Buddhist point of view. It's the brain that is able to perceive colors and so forth. And most of what's out there, I don't even see. Out there, I'm saying, again, like some perceive them. So for them, that's a reality. So my reality, that's very subjective. And that creates my suffering, and that creates my happiness, everything. So it's pretty much Chitta Matra. Whether I'm dreaming or I'm awake, it's all coming from my mind. So it's pretty much Chitta Matra, right? Okay, but not exactly. All right. And then there's something here from Jimmy's from the last time. He's saying about emptiness, he's saying emptiness is actually part of the category of interpretable things when we talk about the ultimate nature of phenomena. So therefore it cannot be taken literally. But this is actually not what this means. This is different. When we say conventional truth are interpretable and ultimate truth are definitive, or let's put it that way. Conventional truth are provisional and ultimate truth are definitive. What does it mean, definitive? It just means lack of inherent existence is lack of inherent existence, to put it in a very simple way. Lack of inherent existence. Whereas when it comes to the conventional world, you know, whether it's a table or a chair or this or that, it's all to do with convention. What is a table for one is a chair for another. Again, to put it in a very simple way. So there's much more of like, yeah, it's provisional. You see, that's the difference. But taking it literally or not, that's a different matter. So the teachings of the Buddha, all the teachings on emptiness are definitive. You can accept them that way, as like lack of inherent existence. But when it comes to conventionality, like we just said, the different philosophical schools, like, I don't know, in the Kagyu tradition, they talk about emptiness one way. In the Gelug tradition, in another way, right? I mean, just the words they use, or some explanations they give. So here, just from the point of view of the usage of words, that conventional aspect, not talking about the actual emptiness, that is different. The words are different, the conventional aspect. Or moreover, I mean, maybe emptiness is not a good example, but describing the mind in a different way, saying clear and knowing, using the words differently. We talked about this the other day. So that is conventional and that's provisional, right? It's like if the Buddha taught in the 21st century, like certain explanation he gave with conventional truth, they're provisional, but also just, you know, table, car, and so forth. Okay, that's provisional. But then there's another way of saying the Buddha's teachings can be taken literally or not. So when the Buddha says, for instance, kill your mother and father, he doesn't literally mean kill your father and mother. He means kill craving and grasping, giving that name in a particular context. So he gave certain teachings you can't take literally. They're just helpful for a particular person, but those have nothing to do with this division we said earlier on. So you can take it literally or not. It has to be interpreted differently. So about abandoning the Dharma, we're not saying that it's correct, it's okay to say whatever is a conventional truth. We can say, oh, the Buddha maybe didn't teach it or whatever, because it's just conventional truth. That's not what we're saying here. So again, to criticize this system over another system, no. If that was taught by the Buddha and that is beneficial and it leads to liberation and enlightenment, we have to be careful about, you know, criticizing it and moreover preventing others from practicing it. That's considered to be abandoning the Dharma. But we can't say, oh no, it's provisional, we can just say that. No. It can all be taken literally. It's provisional, yes, but it can all be taken literally. It's potentially really beneficial for others, and therefore, abandoning the Dharma, we need to be careful. And then he goes on to say, Santideva states, all the other branches were taught for the sake of wisdom. That is true, whatever the Buddha taught on a conventional level. But actually, this is more specifically saying the first 8 chapters of Shantideva's Bodhisattva way of life, they were taught for understanding wisdom. Because in the beginning of the wisdom chapter, I'm mentioning this because Banu asked about where it says this. In the wisdom chapter, which is chapter number 9, the first verse reads, and this is from the way of the Bodhisattva, the Patpakara translation, all these branches of the doctrine, the enlightened sage expounded for the sake of wisdom. So all these branches is usually explicitly refers to the first 8 chapters, everything that was explained there. But in a more wider interpretation, yeah, all conventional explanations was taught, of course, for an understanding of the conventional truth, but also for the sake of understanding emptiness. Yeah, so therefore, yes, that's why I would say, okay. So yeah, that's what Jimmy said, and then he said about the dreams. That's really interesting. Yeah, so it's an interesting message about mental processing. We think we see things, but so much comes from our mental processing. Our conceptual mind comes in there. So it seems like we see reality, but we don't realize we're interpreting a lot of what we see. That's very interesting. He says 99.9%. I don't know where he got that from, that it's 99%. I don't know, but it's an interesting comment. Okay, so Banu then says, what is the source text of Shantideva? And that was the way of the Bodhisattva. This question was followed by Bernd. He asks, when a Lama, so I talked about this last time, when a Lama temporarily changes you into something higher, you may then experience great compassion for a moment. Okay, I talked about this last time. I said sometimes in the presence of a high Lama, you're receiving a teaching, for instance, by His Holiness, and in that situation, suddenly you have some insight, possibly, like you understand suddenly what he says, or you have a great sense of compassion, very strong compassion, like you feel something that you never felt before. Which is something I mentioned, Geshe Dorje Damdul has also mentioned in some of his teachings, when he says the Lama can give you a taste of what you can attain. It's through the influence of the Lama, their presence. That's possible, but then afterwards you still have to work hard to generate that realization. It usually doesn't stay behind. You just have the memory of that, of what is possible. But what does such an occasion mean concerning entering the middle way? In some cases it says that you go to the next stage when you realize something for the first time. Is this already realizing something for the first time, or is it a preview only and you need to go there by yourself? Well, it depends. If you've already gone there in a previous life, you already have these attainments, but they don't come to the forefront because of some obstacles, the Lama may trigger it in you. That's possible. I mean, sometimes you don't know what you did in your previous life. I mean, some of you may have done a lot of meditation, a lot of practice, and it's just lying dormant for now. However, in the presence of a great Lama, it brings it out, and you continue, you basically continue from where you got to last time. That is possible, but I don't think that a Lama can get you to realize emptiness. I think maybe in that moment you have that experience of something, but then it fades again. You only have the memory of something amazing. I don't think, no, that would be too easy. I mean, I wished. Just go to a teaching, move on to the path of accumulation. It's not gonna, no, it doesn't work. So yeah, for realizations or not, you have that moment of like, whoa, it's all connected, for instance. But then that moment fades again because it doesn't come through an actual realization. So some temporary change like that happens. Does it have the potential to open doors? Well, it does open doors. You're encouraged to continue on, but I don't think that you can easily enter a certain level on the path, no. After all, anything that happens would still need to be your karma, right? Okay, so you have to karma to have that experience, that's true. The Lama provides the circumstances for something to ripen. Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would think so. Okay, then there was something. Is the internet? Oh no. Banu, Geshe, I also have this question. What is this question? Done. It says done, and then someone says, I also have this question. Which question?
You had one.
You have to click on
Some from Saturday.
Pardon?
You click on the link in the message, and then it shows you
Oh, but here's sorry.
what has happened.
Here's this beautiful chanting that I talked about. Isn't that beautiful? So she sent the link. That's what Vada just sent, yes. And what is the question? Can someone read it out? Because I don't find it here.
Some of Saturday. If you scroll
That was from Saturday? Oh,
up, 3 questions left from Saturday.
I did have some questions left. Oh, I see.
Linda, Kelvin.
Manu, Kevin, oh yes. Oh, Linda, that's right. All right, so I answer Linda's question, and that's the last one for today. And then Kelvin's I do next time. Is it absolutely necessary to be vegetarian when one is on the universal path? Or is it just to encourage to be a vegetarian? I have come across universal practitioners who are non-vegetarian and ate whatever was offered and advised that as long as we don't kill the animals or the meat was not killed for us, then it's okay to eat. But some said people who eat meat are less compassionate. So is it wrong to be non-vegetarian for those on the universal path? Ooh, difficult question. Well, one of my teachers said this the other day. I talked to one of my teachers, a great geshe from Jampung Loseling, really amazing. He's one of their main teachers down there. And he said to me, don't forget that when the Buddha said you can eat meat, he actually meant don't eat meat. Even when he said it was okay, so again, talking about provisional and definitive, so he said, actually it is accepted, I don't know by everyone, but he said, it's seen in this way that the Buddha said, okay, when you're on arms round, you have to eat whatever you're offered. So it's like, sometimes you just can't avoid it. I mean, look at Tibetans in Tibet. If you didn't eat meat in certain areas, you didn't eat anything. So in this situation, what can you do? If you're offered food on a daily basis and there's meat in there and there's nothing else, right? If you can choose, but anyway, are you going to throw away the meat or, like in those situations? But the ideal would be to be vegetarian. The ideal would be vegetarian because of course they say, yeah, so if you have to eat meat, all right, then at least don't kill the animal. But that seems mean, let someone else do it. And, don't get the non-virtue. That also seems a little bit mean. I mean, not just a little bit. So the thing is, therefore, ideally, but you need to check your own constitution, the situation you find yourself in. Is there meat? Is there none? Can you live? Can you live healthily and so forth? All this, but ideally, don't eat meat, right? Don't eat meat. And then again, if it's like you have to eat meat, the animal bigger or smaller, try to avoid smaller animals because more living beings are killed and so forth. So you find all these explanations. However, those are provisional in the sense, like now provisional in a different sense, that for the time being, if you can't avoid it, what to do. However, if you can, try to do your best to avoid meat. That's the answer. That would be really the compassion. Because think about that. I mean, have you ever taken the time to think, this mutton in front of me, which probably comes from a cat, from a goat, or this pork, or whatever, that was my mother. And when it was still around, that living being was maybe, was at some point, not maybe, at some point, a human being or whatever. We were once really, really close. And this being, if I had met this being as a chicken, for instance, I mean, chicken, they're quite cute. I mean, my sister has chicken, and her children loves them. They all have names. They would never eat them. They're like their pets. So we wouldn't eat cats and dogs, right? But what's the difference between eating a chicken or a dog? In the end, it's eating a living being. So I have a friend from the nunnery, a nun. She loves animals so much. And she also loves meat. But she loves animals so much. The moment she wants to eat meat, she thinks of the animal and she can't. She just cannot. It's incredible. Like her love for animals has grown over the years. And when I first met her, she was still eating meat. But every time like someone serves us and she's like, she thinks of the animal and she's like, I really can't. I really can't. She's thinking of that cute animal and then, right? For us, it's just, we don't even think, we don't even call it. We call it pork and mutton. Okay, chicken is still chicken. But it's like we don't even talk about cow. I'm eating cow. I'm eating a pig. It's kind of like it's no longer a living being. So my friend is a really good example. Like she's like in the beginning when she started, like this whole love for animals became so strong. I don't think she had it when I first met her, but over the last 10, 20 years. So I can see like she goes, no, I can't, no. Yeah, so this is the right attitude. I really admire my friend, right? She has this attitude. Yeah, that's what we should do. So I think this is the answer to this question. So if we can avoid, I think of the animal and then check whether you can still eat the animal. All right. Anyway, okay, great. That's it. Sorry, that was really long today. My apologies for going for so long. And of course, you can always get up and leave. You're welcome to leave. Yeah, because it's really long. All right, then let's, of course, dedicate whatever virtue we've accumulated. In the snow-encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara, Denzin Gyatso, please remain in life until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, thank you.